Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here today. Last Congress introduced legislation to be able to have the BLM conduct a study on the opportunity to be able to move those headquarters out to the west. I think it's worthy of note that this was actually bipartisan. Congressman Perlmutter out of Colorado, a former member of this committee and now the governor of Colorado, and we just saw a video of him not long ago, Jared Polis, also signed on to that proposal and now are embracing that move of the BLM literally to the west. Ms. Brown, I'd like to maybe get an answer from you, but first I'd like to be able to point out that I am concerned that we're seeing the potential to try and just drive political partisanship into something that's actually trying to be able to direct what's going to be good policy. Mr. Small, you talked about the importance of energy to the Northern Ute tribe. Happens to be equally important in Mesa County, happens to be equally important in other areas of Utah, throughout western Colorado as well. To be able to have the people on the ground, to be able to administer those programs, to be able to look at the permits, to be able to advance those, might actually well be a benefit. But would like to maybe submit for the record, Mr. Chairman, if I may, a letter from the Associated Governments of Northwest Colorado for the record. Thank you, sir. They write in this letter that the condition of public lands has declined due to the misunderstanding of land management principles by urban centers across the U.S. The situation is exacerbated by the location of senior land management leadership in Washington. People who do not live and work daily with the decisions that they make and the division around the appropriate management of public lands has served to further the urban-rural divide. I personally fully support the BLM's decision to be able to relocate the headquarters out west, and I'm obviously very pleased that the Interior Secretary chose Grand Junction. I know that a lot went into that process of selecting Grand Junction, so Ms. Brown, I'm hoping maybe you can talk a little bit about that process of the organization and others in Mesa County, how they engaged with the Department of Interior during the selection process. Did the department request information from you? If so, what information did the department require? Were there any meetings between the department representatives and the folks from Grand Junction and Mesa County leading up to that selection?
So I believe in May, we received a request for information from the DOI, and it asked, and then we had a series of phone calls exchanging information. But it was, appeared to be doing a cost comparison across cities across the West, was my understanding, and so they wanted very detailed information on average cost per square foot for office, average cost per square foot for housing, closing costs, rental inventory, housing inventory, workforce. So a workforce report, what kind of workforce we have in Mesa County. And so we gathered that information over a couple of weeks and continued to send them. And so it was just repeated phone calls and emails back and forth between the DOI and my office gathering that type of information.
What would you see, and would you really speak to the benefit that you see of moving the BLM headquarters to Grand Junction to the west?
I mean, the benefit in my mind is it better serves the communities that rely on public lands. But there's the added benefit. There's no question that there's a huge cost a huge cost savings across any of the cities that were considered for the BLM headquarters compared to Washington, D.C. But if it really comes down to what's the most important reason for this move, it's to better serve the communities that rely on our public lands.
Well, when we're talking about the public lands, how important is that in the West? You can speak specifically to Mesa County, but you've lived there long enough now. Just to the West, how important are those public lands? Responsible energy development, the access to the public lands for hiking, for fishing, for hunting.
I mean, it's the most important factor of providing great jobs for the people in our community. It's kind of interesting because Colorado is a microcosm of what's happening at the national level. Our state is divided, as you know, Congressman, with the Rocky Mountains. And east of the Rocky Mountains is primarily all private land. And west of the Rocky Mountains is primarily all public lands. And so our economies are very, very different between the Eastern Plains and the western part of the state. And so it is the most important thing that affects our economy and the jobs and getting kids off free reduced lunch.
I want to applaud really a lot of the comments that you've made. I think we've heard through some of the questions, not with malintent, but some of the distinguishing factors, it would be a real benefit to be able to move to Grand Junction. Appreciate you making the effort to be out
Thank
here
you.
and to be able to advocate for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.